Are you one of those players who, when they hit shots, finish up with the balance back on the back foot here? You notice when I did that, as I swung through, my hands have also flipped, released early, scooped, whatever term you want to use. Let's have a look at how those two things work together to benefit both. Hi, I'm Peter Knight, and I've created this channel, Peter Knight Golf, to help you play the best golf you possibly can. And today we're looking at this relationship between how the hands work and how the pressure moves during your feet. Now, a lot of times when players swing through and the balance stays on the back foot, we can focus just on how that pressure should move. So from the address where your balance is even to the top of the swing, where let's say there's 70 to 80% pressure on here on the back foot, and then getting it to move forward, and as the downswing's initiated, just by focusing on that, sometimes that's enough, and then the hands and arms and the body will all blend together very nicely. Sometimes it doesn't work quite that easily, and by focusing on what the hands are doing, it could be that this is a solution to you if you've been swinging a lot, hitting a lot of shots and having your balance stay on the back foot persistently. When I swing the club through, if my hands are very quiet, that in itself is going to help allow my pressure to shift. The more active my hands are, the more my body is going to tend to brace to support me being able to use my hands. But I don't actually want to do that during the golf swing. I don't want to be very active with my hands, nor do I want my body to brace so that my hands can work. So what we're going to do instead is focus on what the hands are doing and then allow the body to conform to the correct movement of my hands. So when I swing back, as the club swings down and through, the player whose balance stays on the back foot, the back of the left hand and the wrist here tend to start to bend a little bit. Now that can occur quite early in the swing. So when I get back to the top of the swing, at the top you can see that the back of my hand and my arm are either quite flat or maybe there's a little bit of a bend there. That's fine. It's when that bend becomes excessive or that bend increases as I start down that I'm in big trouble. So instead, what we're going to do is start with small swings, get the feel of how these hands are moving, or how the wrist is moving, and then play a few little shots and then see what happens with the pressure shift. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to make a short swing just back to here. Then what I'm going to do, if we focus on what the wrist is doing here, I'm going to allow my wrist just to bend this way a little bit. Now, when you do that, make sure that you don't lift your shoulder or straighten your right arm and create tension there. So when I'm creating that movement there, all I'm doing is I'm moving the wrists, and you'll see that there's been no change in my right arm or right shoulder, so no tension introduced there. Then from here, all I'm going to do is allow my body to rotate through impact very slowly. And when I did that, there's virtually no activity with my hands whatsoever. So from here, the movement, I go back, let my wrist bend this way, and then rotate through impact. Now I can play short little shots doing that. Short swing back, change, and through. And you'll notice from front on, as I did that my movement through impact allowed my pressure shift to go through. So it will tend to work together. And that's the whole idea behind this exercise. The next step, of course, is after you've done that a number of times and started to get the feel of it, is to start to extend the length of the backswing. So the second part is when I swing back, I'm going to now go back to about here, and here's where the trickier part of the movement comes in. From the top of my swing, as I swing down, during the downswing, I actually want this wrist to just bend a little bit. So I might have to practice that in isolation without a golf ball. So from this point in the swing here, as the club swings down, there's a little bit of a bend here. Now I'm bending my wrists a lot more than what I will during the golf swing so that you can see the direction of the movement, but it won't be as extreme as this. So now if I go back to that same point and then have the feeling of the wrist bending the way I described, you'll probably hit shots like that one, which while I struck it really nicely, it flew quite low. And that's because when I'm hitting this shot, the shaft of my club, because of my wrist position, is actually going to be leaning forward a bit. So a lot of players sort of talk about trying to attain lag in the swing as part of what they're looking to do with the swing. This will help with that as well. And then once you've got that sensation, the full swing version of it is that the club will go back and we're going to do everything that we did in that second part, but we're just extending the range back to full swing motion. So with full swing motion, I'm starting off, as you can see from here, with a little bend here, totally normal, and it's going to vary a little bit depending on how a player grips the club. As the club swings back to the top of the swing, I might even still have a little bit of a bend. But now that I'm in full swing, I want to do exactly what I did in the second part of the movement, where I swung back to about here. And then as the club swings down, again, and this is exaggerated again, but as the club swings down, I'm letting the wrist bend this way a little bit as I come down. And again, making sure that there's no tension increased here so I don't suddenly start doing something with my right arm or right shoulder. So nice, smooth movement. And we're putting everything together there. So we're getting the feel of the movement working correctly, but we're also getting the feel of the balance working correctly. Try this movement, particularly if you're one of those players who feels like you're hitting off the back foot all the time. Like I said, it could be the way that your wrists are working that's actually preventing pressure from getting to the front foot. Give it a go, and if that is beneficial for you and gets everything working together, it's going to be a lot more fun on the golf course with a lot more longer and straighter shots.